ready.
Are you kidding me? That's what?
Yeah, every so often it happens that Ryan is right.
100% right. Not even a little bit right.
Tucker Pullman, 2 points last game.
No kidding. My man.
Hey, neither does me running shirtless, but that turned out very well.
Welcome to the PP1 podcast.
Oh, well, at least sound effects work really good. We got something going. It's a good podcast when you have a really good guest and all of your technical stuff goes to crap and you're just freaking out because you want everything to go well and then nothing goes well and everybody loses their connection and all this. This is one of those shows. We welcome back to the PP1 podcast, part of the Hockey Podcast Network, a menagerie of hockey shows, and DraftKings promo code THPN. We welcome back to the show a guest who came on during the summer, and after a Casey DeSmith trade, we chatted about bad days ahead. Well, Joe Bartnick, comedian, hilarious man extraordinaire. If you haven't seen his show, check it out on YouTube. He's a riot. Not like a Canucks riot, but a laughter riot.
It's also on Amazon Prime.
Oh, okay. Well, then maybe I'll watch it on the big TV. Maybe that's what we'll do. Joe, things have gone pretty well, but before we get to that, how are you doing, man? Like, how are things?
Things are fantastic. Just doing tons of stand.
Am I crapped out?
No, you're sort of still there. Yeah.
Things are fantastic. Tons of comedy touring.
Internet.
Oh.
You can tell me about it when he figures his shit out. How about that?
Things are going great. Tons of comedy touring and doing a little bit of acting and some writing and tons of hockey stuff with my Puck Off podcast. And I'll be launching a new one very, very soon, along with Puck Off. That it's going to be mostly Penguins stuff with a Penguins, one of the best writers, the Penguins on the Penguins beat. But I don't want to jinx it because it's in preliminary talks. I'm knocking on wood, and hanging out with you guys.
Nice. Tell me a little bit more about. Obviously, I want to know where you're touring these days. Acting. You're acting in some stuff. I'd be curious what you got going on there, and then I'd like to hear a little bit more about this podcast too.
Well, I was in Old Dads, the movie on Netflix. Bill Burr and Bokeem and Bobby Cannavale, and I'm shooting some shorts right now that'll be up on the All Things Comedies YouTube page, and maybe they'll turn into movies. And I have a mini part in Soda, the Club Soda Kenny little thing. He's a detective Soda, so that's pretty fun. And we're shooting some stuff in the next couple weeks. And let's talk some hockey, guys. People care about me.
I mean, we obviously care about you. I mean, that's like the Netflix thing. I haven't got a chance to watch it. It's on my short list. Old Dads. I mean, how can you not like Bill Burr stuff, right? But
it was the number one movie in 87 countries for 3 weeks.
Craziness. How are you feeling about the Penguins these days? We got like trade deadline is up and coming. We still don't know if they're going to be sellers or not, or if they're going to hold on to their chips. And I mean, I feel like you kind of have to play that into mode when you got like Letang and Malkin and Crosby there. Like, how many more years before you can just start saying we're going to wait till next year and build up? What do you think is going to happen?
I think that we're probably going to keep Jake only because I think as soon as Jake goes, all you're doing is looking for somebody that can play with Sidney Crosby. And no one has ever played with Crosby as well as Jake Guentzel. Now, I would give him a $10 million contract, but I would not want to have the solid no trade. I give maybe 3 years no trade, and then when Sid's deal is up, then we can ship you anywhere, Jake. If he doesn't go for that, maybe a partial no trade. But I would be looking to move a lot of the other dead weight on the Penguins. Raquel has been okay, but I think a contender would take him. He has a reasonable contract. Ryan Graves has been an ultimate disappointment.
Oh,
I never saw a big guy that didn't. He doesn't hit anything by accident. And then I would,
This is
I
ridiculous.
don't know. I don't know if the Djokovic is the answer in that forever, but if someone's willing to, and I like Jari, but Jari's not incredible. And if someone would want to get out from under his contract, because we have 2 guys in the minors that can play, I don't mind that. And I would make sure that Riley Smith is on a different team at the deadline. I've never seen somebody want to be on his old team more than Riley Smith. He was a great Penguin for a month. Then he went to the White House with his old team. And it was like he saw his old girlfriend. It was like, oh, what am I doing? I want to go back. It's like too late, Riley. But I get rid of him because there's guys in Wilkes-Barre, Scranton that can give you as much as Riley Smith for a lot less money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I agree on the Guentzel thing. I think like it's pretty hard to want to let a guy like that walk if you don't have a ton of time with the old boys that are still there, who still got it. I'm not just calling them old boys because they're old boys, but what do you think?
Letang has played great. Letang has played. It's almost like you need a Carlson to actually make Letang play defense. Letang has played great this year, and his partner, the other Pedersen, the Dragon, Pedersen, he's been great. On defense.
Marky P.
Yeah, Marcus Pedersen. We call him the Dragon. Now Gino was, I think he was second star of the month in October, and then the old legs caught up to him, and he's like an old rock star. He can jam out for one song here and there, or give you a good game, a good 2 games, and a lot of times he looks old. But he's Gino, and he's still got some magic. And Sidney Crosby is one of the 4 or 5 best seasons he's ever had. I mean, he's like playing like pre-concussion Crosby. He's been incredible this year. So
wow.
Really he has been. And Lars Eller's played pretty good. Chari's played okay. There's been some other guys that played okay, but in general, and the supporting cast has been a little subpar, but okay. But I would just move out the guys that I think have trade value and just go younger. Because I mean, it's like, some guy from Wilkes-Barre can play almost as good as Riley Smith, and then you're out from under that contract.
Man, I was just looking up Ryan Graves, like no trade clause, like full no trade the whole way through, $4.5 million per. Like, how hard do you think it's going to be to move a salary like that? Like, what has to happen? Do you got to put a sweetener in? You got to give some to move that off your roster, or because he hasn't showed well since going there? I don't know. We're in a similar spot with a bunch of our guys. We've been there before. I totally get it.
No, I mean, maybe. I mean, there's been some miraculous trades that, I couldn't believe what we dumped to get rid of Erik Karlsson. I mean, I think we talked about the last time I was on. I mean, we gave him a garbage can. Oh, crap. So, once I saw that trade, I'm like, Dubas can do anything. So, I don't know. I mean, would it take... I'm not against Grace because Gonchar came in here, Paul Martin came in here and struggled their first year. So maybe Graves isn't a lost cause. I'm just looking at, like, if somebody wants him, they can have him. But I'm not dead set on moving him. Like, we have to get rid of him. But right. I think Riley is a piece that can be, because the ultimate thing is to kind of get better on the fly, right? To rebuild on the fly, while Sid and Gino are still here, to kind of not bottom out completely, so they still have a reason to show up and be happy. So I think the guy to move would be Raquel and Riley, because then they still got Jake, they still got they still have Eller here, they still have Rusty, who's been great. So there's still enough pieces. But what's Riley gonna do?
Okay, I know, Ryan, you want to go on this too, and I know that you're having troubles earlier. What about, like, we continue on, like, the Pittsburgh West hometown discount? You guys give us Guentzel for, like, a song and Kuzmenko or something like that, so we can make room for him. He comes here, he plays, we win a cup in Vancouver, and then in the offseason, he just signs that $10 million contract with Pittsburgh the rest of the way.
That's a great scenario. That is such a good scenario. Joe, can you please make sure that this sounds great?
Can you just put in a request? Would that be okay? Can we do something like that?
I can make a few calls. If they really bottomed out completely and had no chance, I like Kuzmenko. I'll give you Raquel for Kuzmenko all day long. I know you're trying to get rid of Kuzmenko. I think it's going to take more than Kuzmenko to get Jake. But,
Of course, yeah.
A couple bad, if we're really out of it, who knows what Dubas will do. But, I'll take Kuzmenko. I think he's serviceable. He played good last year. Change of pace. Maybe having Gino set him up, But yeah, you guys, you got Sammy Lafferty, who I always loved, and he's playing great. You guys, got Tocchet out there, and you got JR. So, it is Pittsburgh West.
You know what? And we're fine with that. We are so fine with that this season. Pittsburgh West, you can call it whatever you want. You can call it Toronto West for all we care. You can give it whatever name you want. If there's a Stanley Cup going through Vancouver, you can call it freaking, the Barney Parade. I don't care. You put a name on it. Put whatever name you want on it. Stanley Cup in Vancouver, you've got carte blanche to call it whatever you want.
I'm a Ricky Tocchet guy. So and I love Sammy Lafferty, and I'm rooting for you guys. You got JT Miller. I've always been a Brock Besser guy. Pedersen's playing great hockey. I'm pro Vancouver Canuck all the way.
It's funny. I feel like we talked about Brock Besser going to Pittsburgh like a season or two ago when by we, probably me, was thinking that, and I mean, a lot of people thought that, are we still going to get a Brock Besser that can do the 30 plus kind of like, can he contribute not just his 200-foot game, which he kind of figured out, but even the goal scoring. And it seems he's shaken all the demons and all the stuff that's really been going on in his life. And now he seems like this player that's almost been like freed. But we were talking about him a season ago, and I feel like we mentioned Pittsburgh as maybe one of those destinations that he could go to. And now, it's funny that we're taking, the better version probably, but we're all saying like, we want your Brock Besser and Jake Guentzel.
I was going to say, it's kind of like that Jake Guentzel he plays a lot like Brock Besser, except he's a little bit dirtier. Yes. And I don't mean dirty, cheap shot dirty. He's a little greasier.
Yeah,
he's like Brock Besser and a Van Halen t-shirt and a jean jacket on.
Hey, we don't know that Brock Besser doesn't have a Van Halen t-shirt, though. You can't prove he doesn't.
No, but I'm just saying he's more. He goes into way more of the dirty area. But Brock Besser stepped up his dirty area game this season. But Jake has much more nose for the net. Besser has a little bit more sniper in him. Jake has a little bit more playmaker in him and a little bit greasier. But they're very comparable players. Totally. And the only thing about Jake is, knock on wood, he's taking a lot of the same beatings, but somehow seems to bounce up. And that's one of everyone's major concern about giving him an 8-year deal is he's a smallish guy who's taking an insane amount of punishment. And how's he going to last, in years 6, 7, 8? So that's
things you worry about down the road, though. I mean, right now you're like, we're going to stay on the cup with this guy. So.
Well, it's Vancouver, I'd say absolutely. I mean, and JR is going to go all in.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was. I know a few of the shows today. I just saw bits and pieces on the Canucks Twitter, the Donnie and Dollies and Sakaris and Price, and yeah, that's basically the talk. Like, what's left? What's left to do? Because it's really looking like this team might be ready. Now the playoffs are a whole different animal, and we could find out they're a stellar regular season team, and they are not battle tested to be a playoff team. And maybe that's wrong, but. You're absolutely right. I think the Canucks it seems like they're going to be all in. What does all in look like, I think, is the question coming in a month or so. But the main one, and I know, Ted, you probably didn't bust his balls on this, but
not yet.
The whole Casey DeSmith thing, I just want to put you in your place, Joe, that apparently Kennywood doesn't have any height restrictions anymore because Casey DeSmith can ride all the rides in Vancouver if we want. He can go to the P&E, and he's got his pick of the litter out here.
That's great. I just, for Rick Tocchet's sake and Sam Lafferty's sake and everyone who I know, all the beautiful people of Vancouver, you better put him in bubble wrap after Easter, because all I'm saying is every time it's playoff season, he's at the hospital.
Well, hopefully he's expecting a child.
The best availability. The best, he's never available when you need him, which is all a backup's supposed to be, is available.
Okay. All right. Okay. And you did bring that up. We've been kind of DMing over past couple of months, and you said, yeah, things are all fine and dandy right now. Just wait it out till later in the season. So I'm going to hold you to that. And I hope you're
Convictions,
still wrong.
yeah.
And how much is he playing? He gets exposed after 3 games. And see, the great thing is Demko is playing incredible. That's what you need, because the more you see of Casey DeSmith, the less you see of him, because he gets smaller and smaller in net.
So that's true. He's not a very big guy. I was like kind of shocked. It's such a shock actually seeing him, like, you know, between the pipes after the game, like after watching a game with Demko, and he was like 6'4", right, 6'5" or 6'3", and a big guy, like a mountain of a man, and then you see DeSmith come in, and it just doesn't even look like
he's literally between the pipes.
It's tiny, right? Like
but
he's been getting the job done. It's just, but yeah, he's not a big guy, that's for sure.
But in spurts too, you know, he plays good. 2 games. Hey, DeSmith, he's a reasonable backup. And then he stinks for a week and a half, and then you're just praying your guy gets healthy. So,
well, yeah, we're hoping that doesn't even get to the point where we need him for that long.
Exactly.
But that's any team.
And that's one of my major problems was, you know, Jari was never the healthiest guy in the world. And so we can't have 2 guys that always get injured, right, especially when one, in my opinion, is little and mediocre.
I'm going to take a bit of a turn. This hopefully you're going to enjoy. So Joe, you're a big Penguins fan, lifer, right? You like live and die, right?
Oh, it's really what after my wife, my kid, my 2 dogs, it's pretty much they're next, pretty much.
So I got a serious question to ask you. Sudden Death, great movie with Jean-Claude Van Damme, Darren McCord.
Oh, wow.
He actually saved the Penguins franchise, but because of all the damage to Mellon Arena, do you think that was the reason that they actually eventually had to build the PPG Paints arena, because of all the explosions and the helicopter they went through? And also, is that movie plausible? Would be the second question.
Oh, it's kind of plausible. Yeah, I mean, it didn't look that outrageous at the time, other than Van Damme, whatever, winning, like, beating up or killing, 1,000 people.
Yeah,
but it seemed pretty realistic in a way. I mean, he's a better goaltender than DeSmith.
I was gonna say, I feel like there's some low hanging fruit there. You got it. That away.
Way to pick that up.
Yeah. But no, it was just an old arena, and I mean, there's just cracks everywhere, and everything was just so old. But that's why everybody loved it. I mean, it was such a home ice advantage. The place would get so loud, it would rock so hard. The rats would intimidate all the opposing players except the Flyers.
Yeah,
because they're used to Philly.
No rats.
Yeah,
rats. That's fine.
Yeah.
You know what I noticed too? So I was having some fun with it, and I was looking last night, and it's been a while since I've seen that movie. But the whole point of that movie was that terrorists had the vice president of the United States held hostage at a Penguins Blackhawks Stanley Cup match. Like, fast forward to today, no one would even care. They'd be like, "Oh, there's no way that happened. We got bigger things to worry about." Like, that's where you're going to bring someone, not an NBA game, not a Major League Baseball. Like, we're going to put them in the Stanley Cup and we're going to blow up. Like, no, I don't think so.
Well, hockey was much bigger in the 90s until ESPN purposely tried to kill it.
Yeah.
And I don't even, the vice president, who even cares?
Yeah.
It'd be scarier if they took the head of Apple or the head of Amazon. Would be a bigger deal.
Yeah, it would.
Like, we're gonna shut everyone's iPhone down, and that'd be scarier than whatever. We're gonna get rid of Carmela Harris or whatever her name is.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea for a movie. It's, we're gonna hold the world's technology ransom. Jeez, I think people would flock to the movies to see that.
No, I think
everyone
would be too afraid. I think it's probably pretty close to happening. Honestly,
it's like Black Mirror, except a 2-hour-long version of it. Probably not what people want to see. I don't know. Who knows?
I never saw Black Mirror. I don't know.
Oh, don't do it, man. It's a series that once you see one, like, you're really gonna start freaking out and get paranoid. It's just real enough, but a little bit far-fetched. I don't know.
It's like sudden death.
Yeah, basically, yeah. So really, maybe it is a good show. So you're out in LA, but you're following the, hockey and everything. Like, What is your take on this whole Canucks thing? Because I mean, we talk about it all the time, and we're right in the heart of it, and we've drank the Kool-Aid, we're inside the vacuum. But like for somebody that isn't covering the Canucks every single week, like what does it sound like on the outside, especially someone that's not in Canada?
I think they're playing great hockey, and they've cooled off a little bit because who could be as hot as they were like before American Thanksgiving?
Mm-hmm.
But I think they have all the elements. They have a Norris, probably winning defenseman. They have a Vezina caliber goalie. Their top line's amazing. They got some strength down in the middle. I think you pick around the edges, you get maybe one or two more, thugs on defense, and some cannon fodder on the third and fourth lines. You have a coach that's been there as a player and as an assistant coach,
mm-hmm.
and you have a GM that's willing to do anything at the deadline. So I think you're right there. I think the key is always to, and they're probably going to win a division, I'll knock on wood for you, to not get in the 2-3 matchup and go play an easier wild card game.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. And I guess the other one, and I don't know, I thought this game happened already, but I guess it didn't. So we're all in on the Canucks. Things are looking peachy for us as a fan base, and everybody's going crazy. Like this might be the year. The Oilers have basically thrown it in. They were tanking right at the beginning of the season. Everything looked awful. Next thing you know, the Oilers are 1 win away from the longest winning streak in NHL history. Where do the Oilers factor in now? Like, or do we have to take notice on them? Obviously we do, because things are an absolute wagon. But I mean, I still think, like, is Stuart Skinner going to be the guy come playoff time? Like, is he going to be able to go the distance? Do they have a defense that's going to hold up for 4 rounds? Like, what have you guys been thinking about that?
I think that's the key of getting the wild card and getting the Bluesers from St. Louis or the LA Kings, who can't get it from under their own shadow, and then playing the winner of Vegas versus Edmonton. I think that's the key. I think Edmonton is absolutely scary because McDavid is one of the 2 or 3 best players on earth, and he's very, very hungry. And his, and Batman to his Superman is one of the top 5 or 6 best players on earth. Now they got a guy, Corey Perry, who's been there and done that on the fourth line. And, they're like another guy another team that's like 1 defenseman away. And then there's been, look at who won the cup last year in net. Not exactly Patrick Waugh.
Not a brand name,
Who's to say Stuart Skinner couldn't do it? I think they're I think they're a very scary team for anybody, because now you're saying you're really gonna beat Connor and Leon for best of 7, and he's not gonna he's gonna just put that team on his back, being that close.
Yeah,
and in the early season struggles, they help teams get character, and now this team has gotten character. And it's not just those 2 guys. Sometimes it's other guys doing it. Sometimes this year, they're getting there. I mean, look, Hyman's having a career year. The Nuge is playing okay. I think Perry's going to score some big goals for them. You still got Evander Kane, who had a down at the beginning of the year, but now he's coming around. I mean, I think it's going to be them versus Colorado in the Western Conference Finals.
I was going to ask you, what's the Western Conference in your eyes, and the Eastern Conference too would be my other question. But so you think Colorado and Edmonton in the Western Final, and what's your thoughts on the East?
Florida and the New York Rangers. I think Florida's learned a lot of lessons. The fact that Florida played so well without Montour, at the beginning of the year, and the other kid I'm forgetting, who was the great defenseman they have. I'm just spacing right now.
Oh,
Ekblad, yeah. I thought that was going to be a knock him out of the playoff picture. They came out on fire. Reinhardt's playing out of his mind. Barkov is still Barkov. Kachuk hasn't even really warmed up yet. And Bobrovsky has played fabulous. And they might even be a little deeper on defense now, because Oliver Ekman-Larsson is kind of like fought the demons off. And You know, I think, and they play mean. They're a mean hockey team. I like Florida Panthers a lot, and I like the Rangers in the Metro. I've always liked them. I think they have so much firepower up front. Shesterkin's been off this year, but who thought Quickie would resurrect? And then their defense was always not. You looked at their 6 defensemen, like those 6 guys are great. They never seem to play as good as the sum of their parts. This year, they seem to be playing as good as the sum of their parts. And now with Cheeto on injured long-term IR, they can go out and get a center they need. I'm not the biggest Elias Lindholm fan, but I could see Adam Henrique coming in there and playing some big-time minutes for them.
Interesting.
What do you think it's going to take? Because we're all hearing the same names. It's sounding like it's going to be more of a rental market than like a long-term player that you can keep on your roster past the deadline. But what do you think it's going to take to pry a Lindholm or a Henrique, or even going the other way and trying to get like your hands on? Because it seems like all these guys are in Calgary, like a Chris Tanev or something like that, because teams are interested, especially ones that are making that push.
Tanev, or let's go Henrique. I think a first, a good prospect, and a guy that can play now.
For Chris Tanev?
No, for Henrique, he said.
Oh, sorry. I was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
I
think Tanev would just be a straight up first round pick. That's it.
Interesting. That's a weird thing to say this many years later. That's for sure.
It seemed like he was on Vancouver's like trade deadline list for like 4 years in a row, and he would like always get hurt like days before the trade deadline. And there was always talks that he would go to Toronto, and then like nothing would happen. And the return from Toronto was too low. It was always like a second or a third or something like that. And here we are, fast forward 2024, and we're talking first round draft pick for guys like Chris Tanev, and a player that can play now, and a prospect for somebody like Henrique, who's 32, I feel like now. Just wild times right now, because the market's kind of dictated that.
I mean, I watch a lot of hockey, and I really know players in the league, and I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but I guess I am. I have a pretty good eye, and I've liked Henrique's game for a long time, and I wonder why he's still in Anaheim. I thought he'd been moved like 3 years ago. So I think he's very valuable, but I'm not up to speed on exactly what people have been getting, because I used to just be like, a big time guy, it was the number one pick. That was always kind of the standard issue. But then like Tanner Jeannot got, they gave him like the whole farm team, for Tanner Jeannot. So now I really have no idea what things go for, but I can't see Tanev going for more than that. That seems like, you're squeezing more in the first round pick for Tanev. I would just swing lower. Because I don't see Tanev. Maybe I don't watch Western Canadian hockey as much as you guys do, but is Tanev a number 2 on a Stanley Cup winning team? I don't think so. I think he's a 3-4 on a cup winning team.
And I think you're right on that. Definitely. He's a 1 or 2 on, or he's a 2 anyway on a good team. But if you're going to win the cup, if he is your guy, then you probably don't have enough to win the cup anyway.
Yeah, I think the thought process in having that would be like you pair a Tanev, the extremely defensively capable puck mover, with a Hughes, and you just let him free will, and that's the idea of like freeing up a Philip Hronek and then pairing him with someone else on your roster, and then you kind of have like two solid defensive pairings with like a stud on each line. Not saying that there's like Tanev's a 2 or Tanev's a 4 or something like that, but I think that's the thought process that everybody's sort of talking about.
No, I absolutely. But let's just say for craps and giggles that he goes to Toronto.
Yeah,
like I don't think he's turning the tide of the Toronto defense around. Is he better than maybe Brody for sure? But it's not like, oh well, now they got him,
right?
It's like now they you need 2 guys where it's not like he's going to be eating up 30 minutes. He's not on the block, I wouldn't think, but like if someone gets Roman Josi, it's like, oh, okay, well now they have 30 minutes covered.
Sure. Yeah. That's kind of like you're all in, willing to throw all of the cards in, right? If you're going after Roman Josi, you're getting a Chris Pronger, you're getting a Niedermeyer, you're getting a minute munching defenseman that can score, that can make plays. I mean, like you said, he's not on the block, but
or like I know that Carolina has an excess of defensemen that are pretty good. Like I would think like could you get Pesci or Slavin?
That would be amazing
for like a one. Like that's like that would change the course of a lot of teams. I'm not sold on Chris. To me, it's always like, who's Chris Tanev ever beat?
Yeah, who do you like more? Do you like Tanev or the other guy is like, the other guy's Hanifin, right? That's the other one that everybody's talking about possibly to being able to pry out of Calgary. And
and exactly. Like, well, who's he ever beat? Like, everyone in Calgary, they had this huge, the Calgary's never done anything.
Yeah, well, I mean, Tanev's never beat anybody because he's been with Vancouver like his whole career through all the dog days, right? So, but yeah, I understand what you're saying for sure.
I mean, and that's one of my other things I was thinking about too is who died and made Brad Treliving a good GM. Like, where's that ever been proven that he's a good GM? He's messed up. I've never seen him do anything that good.
I think he's got the JR like riverboat gambler in him, like where he's going to go out and make the big move or sign the big guy, but it certainly doesn't always work out for him. That's for sure.
JR has 3 Stanley Cup rings.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, if we're slagging Calgary, like I'm here for it. I'm with you.
Yes.
No, I know. I'm just like, they make it like, Brad Treliving, like he all his signings this summer have been like the best ones he's made have been like, okay, Bertuzzi's been like, okay, hopefully he'll come through in the playoffs. Domi's been like, okay. The defenseman from Dallas via Anaheim's he's on long-term IR because they couldn't find a way just to get rid to throw him in, to drown them in Lake Ontario.
Right.
And Reeves has been a circus clown.
To do that.
Which I called right when it happened. I go, I want Reeves. So it's like, and what did he do in Calgary? He ruined that franchise. So
speaking of big contracts and free will, and what did you think of the Willie Nylander deal?
I think they had to do it. What are they going to do? Let him walk? Yeah. They're going to trade him? I mean, I would be down. I think I said on this podcast 4 years ago, I said you trade Mitch Marner for Drew Doughty and you end all your problems, but they didn't do that. And so they're just, they trade Marner now? Maybe. I mean, I don't know, but you don't let your second best player walk. And Nylander's been slow since he signed a contract, but right before that contract, he was arguably one of the 10 best players in the NHL by far.
Yeah.
And that's what they make. So hopefully there's not another, pandemic and the salary cap goes up. They just have to grin and bear it until John Tavares comes off the books.
Yeah. So this is obviously a very important contract to Vancouver fans because of the whole Elias Pettersson thing. We don't know. I mean, we're not talking contracts right now. He's not going to sign it until the offseason. We know for sure their camp's been waiting on the Willie Nylander contract. What do you think Pettersson signs for?
I think Pettersson should get 8 times 13.
Do you think it'll be 8 or do you think it'll be shorter because he might want it to? Almost like the Matthews thing, right?
Yeah. Well, if he wants it to be shorter, then you do whatever. Basically, your balls are in a vice.
Yeah.
You're going to do whatever he asks for because you need to.
Yeah, for sure.
It'll
be blank check time.
I mean, he's arguably the best player that the Canucks have ever had in my lifetime, which goes back to 1970. We watched 78. I go back further in football, in baseball and basketball because I'm in America. And the Penguins, I remember the Penguins getting killed by the Flyers in the early 70s, but that's about it. So I mean, and what do number one centers, all-star centers on number one teams, centers that make you buy tickets and buy sweaters, they make 13 million at least. And 13 million, I don't care who writes it or whoever says it in Vancouver, 13 million, he'd be doing a discount. He could ask for 15 and JR would probably have to pay it.
That's the scary thing. You're right. I mean, that's the problem. And we had this conversation. I feel like any Canucks podcast or any show has talked about that for the last. Well, Ted, you brought it up basically when the dual deals got signed, when PD and Hughes both got signed. And I probably said this too, like, if you're having to make a decision on, man, I can't believe we have to pay this guy 12 or 13 or 14 or 15 million dollars, you're probably in a good place. Well, we're in a good place now. And now, it's come to a pasture and we're like, well, now we do have to figure this out because they're going to have to pay him. And I think, again, that's probably why they likely are all in the season, because it's going to look like a different team next year unless everybody decides to play along and think, well, money's not the biggest thing, which we all know that's not true.
Lies.
Yeah, it's lies. So you're going to see a PD get anywhere from 12 to probably, I think 12 to 13 is probably what you could see him make. And I'm sure they'll argue till they're blue in the face to make sure that that's what they can hopefully get him for, because Joe, you're absolutely right. He probably could be making anywhere upwards of 13, 14, 15 million dollars. Open market, he would definitely get that. And it wouldn't even be, nobody would blink and be like, who's the first that can offer it to him, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, look at how stupid some teams are. The Kings gave Puke Dubois almost 10 million, and he's
working
awful.
out super well though.
Oh man,
he's working on ruining his third franchise.
That's got to be. It's a hat trick. It's a contract hat trick.
It is.
He's
the absolute worst. And I called it. I still can't. It still makes me sick. That's why I call him Puke Dubois. Every time I hear his name, I want to puke.
Oh, he's such a blah player too. Like, I just don't understand. I get the idea of like this big center and this like strapping guy with draft pedigree, but he's never done anything. And everywhere he goes, the team has to ask to the farm to get him on the roster. And then now you're just like hurting yourself asset wise to get him there. And then he takes the bag as well. And it's like, what does he do? What has he ever done? It's crazy to me.
And he just complains in one side. He didn't want to play for the team his dad helped coach. That's all you need to know about.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There you go.
Maybe maybe just doesn't like hockey as much. Maybe just wants out. Maybe he's just trying to ruin as many franchises as he can and just wants out. Just wants out completely.
Maybe. Maybe take one of those personal leaves of absences.
He's like the forward version of Erica Branson. It's like, why do we keep paying this guy? Why do we keep trading? Although Erica Branson's starting to earn what he's making, which is ironic, but.
Well, what's funny about Gabranson is every team needs Gabranson. Every team could use a Gabranson. Every team bitches when he's on your team, and then as soon as he leaves, next day you're looking for a guy like Gabranson. It's not his fault he makes too much money.
Yeah, in a role, like a role designed for him, he is a good player, and I think he's proved that over and over again. You can't put too much on his plate. If you're asking him to be a bottom pairing guy that's physical and take care of his own end, like, yeah, you've got a perfect guy for that. You're right though, Joe. That contract, those early contracts, and then the double down, like, really hurt his reputation, I think, with fans and the rest of the league and teams and stuff when it comes to that.
You can't have a role-playing defenseman though. Like, you can do that as a fourth line center or
why not?
Not that type of role-playing defenseman. I don't think. Although you'd probably make the argument, well, what's the difference between him and Chris Tanev? And then one is just a defensively sound defenseman. The other guy is just filling a role. I think there's a difference there.
Yeah, I think there's a place for guys like that. Just you can't be miscast if you're gonna have a guy like that on his team. It's got to be a defined role. But
that, and you just can't pay him $4 million. If Gabranson was making 127, there'd be 30 teams lined up to get him.
You'd love him, right? Like, everybody couldn't stand Brandon Sutter making, what was it, 4.5?
Yeah.
And then when they re-signed Brandon Sutter at league minimum to play fourth line center, everybody loved the deal. Loved it.
That's true. You're not lying there. I've got a question for you guys. So trade deadline's coming up, and this is typical Ryan throwing something out there and hopefully it sticks. Do you see a world based on where they're at in their organization and, this season, below the playoff bar? Do you see, and I've heard some rumors, but do you see a world where Trevor Zegras gets traded this trade deadline?
Yes.
Crazy.
If you were going to pick three teams, because his cap hit is like gorgeous. That you talk about an Eric Branson contract, like, geez, he's only making 1.7 more than that, and you're getting a guy that could easily help a team that he's excited to be on. Joe, who would you have, like 3 teams, maybe, or I don't know, one out of the West, one out of the East? Who would you have Zegras going to?
I think a team that could use some scoring, obviously, and has enough players around him that he can be a little flashy, but maybe has some leadership that can rein him in. Maybe Carolina.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Maybe in Nashville.
Ooh.
Maybe St. Louis, Armstrong lets him swing big.
Yeah.
Armstrong. I mean, I'd say Seattle, but he doesn't seem quite like a Ronnie Francis kind of player.
Nashville, I like.
I mean, where he should go, but it's an albatross for everybody. I don't wish it on anybody. Is he should go to Columbus and try to add some excitement to that team. But every time they get somebody exciting or try to get somebody into that building, no one wants to stay. So I don't wish that on Zegras to get traded there. But I mean, that's who he should go, or he should go to, heaven forbid, Ottawa. Because, we've been hearing about them for the last 10 years, and they don't do anything right either. But I mean, he should go somewhere, because to me, 3 years ago when Zegras hit the open market and he was on the scene, it's like, oh my God, he's so flashy, he's amazing, he's got his offense. Well, now the Ducks drafted a bunch of guys that are really good and offensive, and they don't need Zegras anymore. And Zegras is not the GM. I'm spacing on his name right now of the Duckies. Verbeek, Patty Verbeek. He is not a Pat Verbeek player. If they were on the ice together, Pat Verbeek would demolish him.
He'd be like targeting him. Yeah.
So, but 3 years ago, he was perfect for the Duckies. They needed his offense, but now they got studs on offense now. Leo Carlson is a stud. Mason Marchment is a stud. I'm sorry, McTavish. I always get them confused. Marchment's in Dallas. McTavish is in Anaheim.
Does your McTavish remind you of like a Verbeek back in the day, like that kind of player? He seems like that kind of guy. I
think young McTavish is better. I think he's more of a playmaking ability. He plays center. I think he's more offensively well-rounded. I don't know who you'd want more in a knife fight in Harlem. Probably Patty Verbeek, but
still, even at his age, I'd still want him.
Yeah. So but that Marchment kid McTavish is just Marchment in Dallas is amazing too. But they just have a lot of offense right now that and they still got Troy Terry. I think Zegras can move because they're building something in Anaheim. They show flashes to me every now and they're better than you think they are.
That being said, then, do you think, based on that, do you think that maybe they hold out and kind of play it out a la Brock Besser and just hope that, they can get more out of him, that he kind of turns a corner and he becomes that star that they kind of drafted him to be?
Maybe it's a similar story, right? I mean, there was a year or two here where Brock Besser was the player, right? He was the guy.
Yeah.
And I think that's like a slippery slope sometimes, and it can be when you start to draft, like Joe said, better guys, like better hockey players, better overall players, and you felt maybe like this isn't the guy we're going to rebuild around, but can that player sort of like assimilate into a role as like a supporting player, not the guy? And not every player can do that, right? I mean, there was, LeCavalier and Richards in Tampa that somehow made it work when it was pretty clear that Vinny wasn't the best player, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, I could see a situation where it does work, but I think it's also, likely that he does get moved. And I think like Ottawa is a perfect example, Joe, as a guy of a team that he could end up on. And I love the Carolina thing too. And I know it's weird, but I could also see him end up in a place like, Washington, playing in that like Alexander Semin role or something like that too, right? I mean, they've been known to have some softer players on the wing because they can augment it with some tougher guys on the roster that are heavy and can play. And maybe that's where he needs to go, somewhere where he can help score on a wing with some tough players and fit in a role nicely where he doesn't have to be a complete player. I don't know.
You made so many great points, Teddy. It really, I mean, that's exactly That's all I can say. It's exactly what you said. Even
That's why
even in Boston,
he really makes the show tick.
Even Boston, they have the structure. He's not going to be pulling his stuff in Boston with that leadership group, or pulling that stuff with Sid. And not that he's a Malconel by any means. It's just he plays his showboat offense and doesn't know what back checking is. It's one of those things where he's maybe not a winning player, and I think Verbeek is trying to build winning players.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not trying to knock the kid, because people learn how to become winning players in this league. So he won't be the first. If he won't be the first to be an offensive.
Sometimes it just to be too.
It's like look at Stevie Yzerman. He was points, and then Scotty Bowman comes to town, and then he becomes the ultimate warrior.
Yeah, he completely changed his game around, right? He could have been a 120-point guy every year, but he was like 85-point guy. But you're never going to score when I'm on the ice,
right?
Right.
And I don't know if Zegers has that.
No,
but he could be more defensively responsible, and just take some of the, but that's why he's on the cover of magazines and he's on video games, and that's why he's famous. Yeah, because he makes a couple of Michigans and does some flash. So it was great for the organization. I don't want to knock Zegers. I enjoy watching him play. But you asked me if he might get traded. I think he certainly could be.
New York
if we're talking
Rangers.
Yeah, 100%. And if we're talking about, go back to Philly moving Richards and Carter. Like, before that season, did we ever see that happening? Like, no way. There was no way. Like, that was going to be the team that they were going to build around. Those guys won, World Junior Championships before making their way over to Philly. And it was like, they looked like they were the real deal. And then boom, guys were moved, right? LA and Philly making moves together, and then guys have success when they move on. Maybe that's what happens with Zegras. I don't know.
Yeah, at some point the NHL stopped making big trades.
Yeah,
or rare bigger trades.
Mm-hmm.
They're rarely done now. For most of my lifetime, big trades happened a lot. People got moved.
Yeah,
it was a big deal. Yeah, and now it's with the cap. I think has changed. Like, well, we can make that move, but the money has to work out. Before, just like, screw it. We have money. We want to make this move, or didn't matter because we'll find a way to make this work. In the off season or something. So it just happened. Yeah,
and I've used this point I've used this reasoning for different points, but I'll use it for this one too. When there was 21 teams and 23 teams, 24 teams. Well, most of the teams made the playoffs. GMs were way more wheelie dealy because they figured out we're going to make the playoffs anyway. Let's just change it up. That's why there's more fun in October, November, December, January, February. There's 6-5 games and 4-3 games and more running gun because every point didn't matter quite as much. Mm-hmm. Now it seems like people are so close to the vest. Like, well, we're pretty good with this guy. We could probably be an ace seed with this guy and not be like, well, if we make this trade, we could be a 3rd seed.
Yeah.
Because now it's like, well, if the trade doesn't work, then we're out of the playoffs. Whereas before, people just went for it because they pretty much knew they were making the playoffs.
Yeah, you got a guy that's going to be in the roster. Like, well, fans are going to enjoy him in the first round at the very least.
Right. It's just kind of like, well, we're making the playoffs, so let's shoot for the stars. Now it's like, oh my God, there's 10 teams a point behind us for the 8th seed. We better watch out.
Yeah. Or like, love Keith Carney and Eric Weinrich.
Yeah. Yeah, like, are we going to make the playoffs? Like, I don't know. Maybe we're going to make the playoffs, but we're also going to offload this guy that's making $6.5 million. So now we're set up for next year. Like, two things can be true, right? You can make a trade and deal these guys off your roster, and then still set yourself up to have money to spend come free agency. Terribly, I'm sure, but.
Well, that's coming full circle now. That's what I'm trying to say about Riley. Let him go back to Vegas. We'll use this $5 million somewhere else. There's. The guy coming up can't be that much worse than what Riley's giving you.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah,
Joe, I know you're going to be getting low on your battery life, so we'll make sure that we have a nice, pleasant, finale. you've got your next little bit of your comedy tour coming up. When first and foremost, when are you coming out to BC?
I want to get to Vancouver. I told my agent a couple of weeks ago we got to get some dates in Western Canada for sure.
Kelowna is a great spot. You should come to the Revelry and do a show.
Yeah.
The Revelry, right?
The
on.
Revelry, yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty banging little place. But tell everybody, I mean, because we're bringing you on as we know you're a hockey guy, but the people that maybe don't know you, spew some facts about Joe Bartnick, the comedian extraordinaire.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, the people who have listened, like, this guy better be a comedian. Doesn't know anything about hockey.
It's like, well, he's got a hat and a hoodie. That's a good start.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
He has all the gear and a couple of.
That's a great looking hat, by the way. I love that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Joe Bartnick. JoeBartnick.com is my website, and I'm at Mr. Joe Bartnick on Instagram and just Joe Bartnick on Twitter and on Facebook. Don't follow my fan page; just become my regular friend. And come see me. I do stand up all over the country, and I get to Canada a lot. I haven't been here in a minute though. And you can see me in Old Dads, the movie. If you have Amazon Prime, my special was on Amazon Prime, A Killing in Chicago.
It's good, man. It's good. It's funny. It's there's some good bits in there that I try not to remind my wife how funny they are. But
if you don't have that, you can watch it on YouTube. And if you have Netflix, I'm on Old Dads, a big movie on Netflix. I'm also on Bill Burr's Friends Who Kill. I have a couple minutes on that special.
Man, this is awesome. I hear you on a comedian's podcast. I'm thinking he talks hockey. I wonder if he talk hockey with a hockey podcast. And here we are, 2 episodes.
Yeah, and listen to Puck Off. If you like hockey, listen to Puck Off.
There you go. See, you got stuff.
Yeah.
So
I got stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm smart.
What is it? What does you say? And I don't say this. Like, is it better than eggs? How do you say that?
Oh, well, what happened?
It was one of your bits there.
No, what happened is it's been an egg.
There you go.
It's God bless. But the closed captioning thing messed it up and made it say better than eggs.
I was gonna say, I'm like, is that a saying?
Oh man.
So I just leave it go because by the time you pay attention, I was like, whoever did that, whatever AI someone used to do that, I was like, yeah. So I just say, look how the AI doesn't know Italian. They think those computers are smart, but egg.
Better than egg.
See, Benedict means God bless. Okay, in Italian. Okay. And that's like all my aunts, everyone's, my grandmother, every old Italian. That's what they say when it's like anything like whatever. Say some little kid running, and like oh look at him, look how he plays hockey. Benedict.
So you don't say better than eggs. That's not a saying.
Not a saying.
That's how would you say that as an Italian?
I'd have to. I don't know. I don't know. I better learn because I'm going to Italy in 6 weeks.
That's your next special. That's the next title of your special. Better than eggs. I don't get it. Like, you're gonna have to watch the show. Figure it out. All right,
Joe, fellas. This has been
awesome
fun.
To have you, man.
I hope it was okay.
This is man, talking hockey with anybody is okay. You're a blast, and I mean, we can always bring back the Casey DeSmith thing. I hope you're still wrong the next time we chat.
I hope I am for your sake too. I wish no ill will on Mr. Smith.
Well, that's not what you said at the before the podcast. I mean, hey, we can edit that out. It's fine.
Oh no, I have the Djokovic I'm very happy with, and believe me, us Penguins, we have our own problems now. Casey DeSmith is now the least of our problems.
There you go. Perfect, Joe. Thanks so much for coming by. We really appreciate it.
Bye, fellas. Have a good one.
Appreciate it, Joe. Thanks,
say hi to Ricky Tockett for me.
You know what? I've got him on speed dial.
Sweet.
Thanks, Joe.
Bye-bye.
Man, always a pleasure. He's so funny.
I like talking to Joe because like he just knows his shit when it comes to the East, and just like he was saying, I don't watch enough West hockey to know everybody inside and out. I mean, I feel like I inadvertently feel the same way about the East sometimes, man. It's good having those kind of guests on. I enjoy them.
I think you're right though. It's kind of funny. Like, we're almost done here, but it is kind of funny when we always complain like, oh, the East never watches West Coast stuff. I'm like, well, do we always watch the East Coast stuff? I mean, sometimes, bits and pieces. I'm usually watching the end of an East game before the Canucks game. That's about it.
Yeah, like we're watching important games. Like, you're tuning in for a a Rangers Boston game, or like
Sure.
I don't on purpose watch Toronto, but like, you know what I mean? Like
You're kind of forced to see it anyway.
yeah, we're watching games that mean something, that are appropriate, right? So
Mhm.
yeah, I'll tune in for a Pittsburgh game or a Caps game or something like that, because they're fun games and you just never know, right? But yeah, I don't go out of my way to watch. I watch 82 Canucks games a year,
Yeah,
and
which is
I'm probably not spending any more than like another 20 or 30 watching Eastern Conference teams. So
exactly. No, I hear you. The All-Star game is this weekend, and or All-Star, whatever you want to call it. There's a fan draft, or the draft, that'll be interesting again.
I can't wait to see that. Like, honestly, I'm really stoked for that.
I hope it's better than last time. I mean, last time was pretty sweet with Phil Kessel.
Last time was pretty good. Like,
Yeah.
last time was pretty. I mean, and wasn't Kessel the perfect guy to like be selected last year?
Yeah,
Right?
it worked out well for him after that, didn't it?
Yeah, he did okay.
I was thinking, like, the NHL All-Star game, all All-Star games are pretty tough. And this skills comp for pretty much any sport is usually the reason you watch. Dunk competition, home run derby. Hockey has like a bunch of things, like hardest shot, I guess, but there's kind of a collection of things. I was thinking to really make it worthwhile, and I think they said for the skills, like the winning team gets like $1 million or something like that.
I think skills comp is the winning player gets $1 million.
The winning player gets $1 million. I'm sorry.
Which is like, it was weird saying, like, and I'll let you finish your thoughts, sorry, but it was weird seeing Miller talk about it. I don't know if you saw this interview that they did in the dressing room. But like, hey, like, what are you thinking you're going to do well in? You're going to be in for some of these skills comps, right? And you'd be like, hey, there's $1 million on the line. Like, that's a lot of money, right? You think pro athlete, they $8.5 million contract, $1 million drop in the bucket. Not that way, man. $1 million means something to these guys, and maybe they do something a little extra when they're out there to try to like get the bag, right?
So I was thinking, if they had it for like the winning player or something like that, that they tie in like some real life stakes as far as the NHL goes. Like, if the winning player, like his cap hit comes off for the rest of the season or something.
Oh man, that would be something.
Like, could you imagine all of a sudden, like, geez, like, you want to make it like, listen, we're going to do everything in our power to get you to the All-Star game. Now fans are going to vote in, like, I mean, you'd be voting in all the top guys anyway, but now all of a sudden you've got some real stakes. Like, listen, we could use $5 million or $8 million or $10 million prorated or whatever. Like, all of a sudden, like, we can add a Trevor Zegras at the deadline, or like, could you imagine?
People would be pissed.
Oh, like bonkers, absolutely.
Pissed. Like, yeah, I couldn't even express how mad people would be. That's like, I mean, I like the idea of like, I would tune in for sure. And I like the idea. It's fun to be like winning conference skits, home ice advantage. Like,
but imagine the breakaway relay coming down to like, I don't know, like, let's just say it was the Canucks, for example. Let's say it's Elias Pettersson versus, was it Bobrovsky, I guess, in the East, right?
Sure.
And or Hellebuck or something like that. Like, could you imagine you've got one breakaway and it's going to decide, like, holy, if Pettersson scores, and let's just say this is a next year thing, right?
Yeah.
If Pettersson scores, there's $10 million that comes off the cap to the rest of the season. As if you don't, like, I know that is super, like, lame and, very, circusy, but I mean, that would be a real value. Now, all of a sudden, you're thinking, like, the All-Star game has now become, like, the must-watch thing in the NHL, because you're thinking, like, there is, like, 1 billion players that I would love to have on this team for 3 months.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
Maybe 1 million.
The team going, like, can you imagine, one player's cap hit coming off or something like that? Like,
that's wild.
$5 million would be like season. That could possibly be season altering. I just don't think they would give a winning team that much of an advantage for a halfway point in the season contest. Even the home ice advantage thing would be whack, right? Because say you're in the final and you only had, a few representatives, you barely got to take part in it, and the other side won the skills comp, and now you're the one paying the price for that in the Stanley Cup final for your team losing the skills competition, which you had no control over whatsoever.
Right.
All that work you do in the regular season, say you finish number one with a bullet, and like, say the eighth seed team makes it all the way to the cup final. Could you imagine giving up home ice advantage
as the number 1 seed?
Oh, I'd be pissed.
And that's why you do it. And that's why you do it. Chaos.
Yeah.
Chaos. grass.
Yeah, shenanigans, straight shenanigans.
It would be bears on bicycles, 100%.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to hit like end stream tonight when we finish our show here,
Oh,
because
neat.
I feel like I still have like a busted up rotator cuff from dodgeball last night.
Yeah, that was
It's
something.
apparently when you throw 9 innings worth of fastballs in an hour straight, it's not good for a 40-year-old man. So warm up, kids, is the moral of the story. And if you think you warmed up, warm up a little bit more.
Warm up, stay fit, have fun.
You only get one body. We're doing, well, I mean, you've got a few new body parts, so I shouldn't really talk. You got like a bionic thing going, so
Something.
that's what I see. So we got an early show this week, so that means we don't have one later in the week. So it's going to be quite the lengthy.
Wow.
Quite the lengthy.
So much relaxing.
I'm gonna finish some TV shows for sure. All-Star game we got. Nothing else.
Watching a good show? Any good shows lately?
So we're finishing up our Crave free subscription. So there's a mini series that I've got a few of the books and have watched. It's called CB Strike. Okay. So he's a PI, and he fought, I think, in like Afghanistan, a British guy. And anyway, they solve some murders and stuff. And the first season is
that guy who runs around in Hawaii and he has that mustache.
Nope, that's Magnum. That's a totally different guy. That's me. No, this is a British dude. He's got one leg. He lost a leg from like an IED. We were having a joke about this one at work. Like, she's like no, not an IUD, because it isn't that. It is an IED, an explosive. Anyway, so like the first season is only, I think, like 2 or 3 episodes as a miniseries. Second season, same kind of thing. Like, it's based on a book. J.K. Rowling wrote the books, and then they've put it onto HBO. Really cool show. Cool. Really quick. You can hammer out the first 3 seasons or the first 3 books or a series or whatever you want, stories, within a couple nights. So we got a couple left of that for season 5. It's looking good so far. They're about an hour long for these episodes, but super, super good, like British kind of crime drama. If you have PBS, it's cooler than the PBS shows that, if you're old, that you if you watch, that's probably nobody that listens to this show. But yeah, pretty good. And then we got to finish up Westworld. We've got about 3 episodes left, but
you're just chugging along with those 3 seasons, right? Westworld.
We're in season 4. Season 4. So yeah, anything for yourself?
We just wrapped up watching Beef. So if you haven't watched Beef yet, that one's super weird. And also Beef. Yeah, it's about 2 people who have beef with each other.
Oh, okay. So it's has nothing to do with a cow. Yeah,
it's Jeremy Ewan from Walking Dead, and I think it's Ali Wong. Yeah, I think so. Okay. Anyways, it's really good, very fun, super strange, very twisty turny, intense, awkward, lots of things. It's definitely worth watching. And then we also just wrapped up The Bear. So if you haven't watched that one, I definitely recommend it. If you've worked in kitchens, it's going to give you anxiety. If you haven't worked in kitchens, it's going to give you anxiety. But it's also very, very good. So I definitely would check that one. And then we just started watching Monarch.
I don't know what that is. Oh, that's is that on Apple?
Yeah, Godzilla, Kong stuff. It's kaiju stuff. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought it was about the monarchy.
No, anyway. Definitely not. No, it's Monarch is the company that like does all the finding out about giant monsters that live on the earth.
Oh, I like this.
It's a little more, it's a little bit more of a caper than just like a giant smash 'em monster movie. But it's in the the Kong versus Godzilla universe with all the big players and the correct names. So pretty cool. I'd check it out if I were you.
Sick.
Yeah,
absolutely. Hopefully you can still hear me if my video hasn't cut out. Also, I went viral this week on the internet. Somehow it's at like, the last time I checked, it was like 51,000 views. So
awesome.
Sometimes I'm clever. Before my internet craps out, and it might have already, everybody, this is the PP1 podcast. I'm joined by my buddy Ted. I'm Ryan. We're on the Hockey Podcast Network, a menagerie of hockey podcasts for absolutely every team and a few more. DraftKings promo code THPN. That is pretty much all you need to know. So on behalf of Ted, who is assistant to the regional manager, I'm Dwiggett Schrute. Enjoy the All-Star game. Go Canucks, go. Peace out.